Right, good afternoon, everybody. The clock in front of me says it's not 2 o'clock yet, but I have been told by these wonderful officers it is actually 2 o'clock, so we will carry on. I'm Councillor Chris Holdred. I represent High Harrogate and Kingsley for North Yorkshire Council, and I'm the chair of the Harrogate and Knaresborough Area Planning Committee. A few announcements before we get cracking with the gist of the item this afternoon. Please, can people seated in the public gallery confirm they can hear me speaking? And you should be able to hear everybody else's. Can you? Not very well. Is this any better if I speak more into the microphone? Yeah? Okay, I'm getting thumbs up, so that's good. If for any reason you can't, if you just put your hand up and we'll get the speakers in here to move a bit closer to the microphone, I think, because it doesn't pick up from a long way away. The meeting is being streamed live on YouTube, so the public can view and listen to the meeting remotely. And in the interests of openness and transparency, I must also make you aware that it is being recorded and will be available to view on North Yorkshire Council's website. That will be for the next year. Can I please ask you all to turn your mobile phones off or onto silent, please? If you do need some toilets in the public gallery, if you go out of the door to your right and proceed to your right again, you'll find the toilets there. Unsurprisingly, there's no fire alarm scheduled for this afternoon, so if you do hear it go up, we will evacuate the building by the nearest green man sign. Members, officers and public speakers, when you're using the microphones in the chamber, please make sure the mic is close to your mouth and that you speak clearly and loudly, and that helps the live stream coverage as well. The cameras will come to you. Can I introduce the officers in attendance today to support this meeting? We've got Glenn Sharp here to my left, who is our senior solicitor. On my furthest right, we've got Nick Turpin, who is a development service manager. And next to me here on my right is John Worthington, also a development service manager, and John will be presenting the officer's report. We've also got two of our democratic services colleagues, Edward Maxwell, who's doing the live stream, and David Smith from the Senior Democratic Services Officers, who's got the very exciting job of producing the cards telling our speakers how long we've got left. Do you just want to show those, David, so we know what we've got? A yellow 30 seconds to go and an orange 10 seconds to go, so we'll enjoy those when they start appearing later on. Okay, before I move to the agenda, I just want to remind everyone that this meeting is being streamed live, as we've said. It's therefore accessible to a wide audience, and in accordance with usual practice at public meetings, I do look forward to a respectful debate between members. So we'll move to item 1 on the agenda, which we go to David for, which is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillors Goslow, Haslam and Windus, and Councillor Walker is acting as Councillor Goslow's substitute.
And thank you very much for doing that, Councillor Walker. Minutes of the meeting held on 26th of August 2025. I am looking for a proposer and seconder that they an accurate reflection of that meeting. I think Councillor Broadbank is proposing and Councillor Mann is seconding. Can we all vote on that? We do it with hands, not pressing any buttons, and that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Declarations of interest. I have to make one myself. I would like to mention that in my capacity as a Harrogate Town Councillor, I did participate in a debate concerning the proposed transfer of an existing contract between this council and Harrogate Spring Water to the newly created Town Council. That was back in May. That matter has no bearing on my consideration of this planning application, which I approach with an open mind. Anyone else like to declare an interest? Councillor Broadbank.
Just to declare that I am a member of the Civic Society, but I'm just a member. I'm not further involved with it, so it won't affect what I do today.
Thank you for that. Any others? No. Okay, so we do now move to the main item of business this afternoon, which is a one-item agenda, Harrogate Spring Water Bottling Facility, Harlowmoor Road, Harrogate. I'm going to invite Mr. Worthington, our Development Services Manager, to present the report to committee. The presentation will be shared on screen. Any late representations received after the report was published will be summarised by the planning officer during their presentation. I'll remind members of the committee that we can ask questions to John. We cannot ask questions to any other of the speakers. That is written in the North Yorkshire Council Constitution. So if you do wish clarification for any issue whatsoever, John is going to get all of the questions. Okay. So would you like to present your report, John?
Okay, thank you, Chair. The matter before members today is an application for reserve matters approval in relation to an extension to an existing bottling facility in the Harrogate Spring Water Plant, west of the Harrogate Town Centre. This location plan approval is sought for those matters that were reserved for future agreement when outline permission was granted for the extension in 2017. And the issues before members today are layout, landscaping, scale and appearance, and also access within the site. Matters that were determined in 2017 when the outline planning permission was granted include the principle of extending the facility, access into the site, drainage and tree loss. These were all determined at outline and are not matters for consideration at today's meeting. Before us is the site location plan showing the works to the southwest of the current facility. This is a parameters plan which was conditioned at outline stage, which shows the approved development area for the extension. This is a scale and massing plan from the outline permission, showing the maximum and minimum allowable dimensions, and that information is in more detail in today's report. This is the proposed plan showing a building which does conform with the parameters plan from the outline consent. On that basis, the layout of the proposals are considered acceptable, and also the internal access arrangements are also considered acceptable. So that's two of the reserved matters. This is the proposed landscaping plan, which shows planting within those elements of the red line sites that are not being constructed on, and also additional landscaping on a strip of land to the west of the site. Replacement planting will exceed levels to be lost, and landscaping proposals are considered acceptable. Proposed elevations of the building, the key elevation is the key public facing elevation is the one in the middle, which faces towards the north of the site. That's timber clad, metal clad, glazed openings. Consider that the appearance of the building is acceptable. These are proposed site sections showing the size and bulk of the building. These comply with the scale and massing plans, which are showed earlier from the outline stage, and they're at para 10.28 of today's report. The proposals comply with those massing and scale plans, so the scale of the building is also considered acceptable. It's the proposed site plan and some photos of the site. This is the access into the site, which remains unchanged and was approved at outline. The existing buildings on site, the proposal is to the beyond the buildings. This is a closer view, and the building will be on the land that can be seen behind the pallets pile where the treed area is. This is within the site where the building will be constructed. These photos were taken in July of this year, and a further photograph within the site. As an update to the report before members, paragraph 5.3 of the reports, the report advises that 32 jobs will be created as a result of the proposals, but the applicants have advised us that figure will actually be 50. Paragraph 10.19 of the report, the report advises the proposed landscaping will be maintained in perpetuity by the applicants. However, as they are leaseholders, that should be amended to read that it will be for the duration of their lease period. Members will have received a letter from legal representatives acting on behalf of Objector Group, raising a number of concerns regarding the legality of the proposals. Officers do not agree with the points put forward, nor do we believe they provide an impediment for determining the application today, and our legal officer, Glenn, will be able to update if members require that. So in conclusion, Chair, it's recommended that approval of reserve matters that are before members today be given, and that will be subject to the prior completion of a legal agreement which controls the off-site landscaping area. Work on that agreement is not complete today, and both the draft of that agreement and the final version will be publicly published before approval is formally granted in line with the Greenfields legal case decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. And I just want to reiterate that the principle of the development has been established under the Outline Planning Permission. The principle of development and associated technical matters have been approved as part of the Outline Planning Consent, and therefore the matters, as John's just stated, for consideration to members this afternoon relate to scale, layout, appearance and landscaping. So please can I encourage members to stick to those issues and avoid questions in relation to issues such as highway impacts, flood risk, noise, land contamination or ecology, as these were assessed under the outline applications and where necessary controlled by the conditions on the outline consent. So we're taking questions to Mr. Worthington, and as he's the only one allowed to take questions, maybe our legal officer can come in to clarify things. I'm going to take, as long as you want to ask these questions, members. So I think Councillor Mann had his hand up first.
If I can get this working. I understand that community groups could be given the chance to buy a piece of land on which Harrogate Spring Water wants to expand. The council, I understand, will have to sell the land which it owns to Harrogate Spring Water. Also, I understand the council has already designated the Pine Woods an asset of community value, which means it must consult the community before any land is sold. So I understand this gives local community groups the opportunity to put an offer together and place a bid. And it is open, I think, to the local planning authority to decide that listing as an asset of community value is a material consideration in this case. If I could ask Glenn to give the committee some guidance on this issue, please.
The area of land in question is listed as an asset of community value. That is not material to the determination of this planning application. If the planning consent was granted and the scheme was to proceed, there is still a parallel or an ancillary legal procedure to go through in order to deal with that status as an asset of community value, and there would be an opportunity, period of 6 weeks, I think it is, during which it would be made available for other people to bid to acquire it. But in terms of the determination of this application, the status of that land is not material. There is a separate ancillary legislative mechanism to deal with that.
Any further points, Councillor Mann? Okay. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm just going to follow up. I do think the asset of community value is an important consideration. I totally acknowledge what you said. For me, there is a potential conflict of interest. If the council approves this plan, because of the agreement it's got with Danone, there is a financial benefit to the council. And if it were to sell the land to Danone, again, there is another financial consideration. So the first part for me is, how is the council managing that potential conflict of interest? And secondly, my understanding is that anybody can put planning in for a piece of land that they don't own, which clearly this is what this application is about. And my understanding is that to do that, there's obviously significant financial risk, which Danone has obviously decided to go for. It needs to be legally transparent and fair. And my understanding is that a Certificate B should be submitted to the landowner so that they know that that planning permission has been put in. So I just want to know whether that documentation, I believe it's a Certificate B, has been submitted so that we can, I'd like to be able to see that document to see whether it's been issued. I don't know whether we can make it available or not. And if that certificate has been provided, presumably North Yorkshire has said yes, so that that certificate can be issued. I'd like to know if it has been issued, what was the comment on that certificate and the notification. So if we can get a comment on that. And if the council has supported that by issuing the certificate, surely that is predetermining an application by saying that the council is quite happy to provide that land for planning. And I just want to understand the technicalities of that. So has that certificate been issued or not? And if it hasn't, can we legally proceed without a certificate, effectively saying that the council will at some stage potentially offer that land to Danone? Thank you.
Right, I'll try. That's quite a long question, so bear with me. I think if I can summarise or attempt to summarise, if I'm doing it fairly, I think there are two main points there, Councillor Walker. First of all, you're asking about potential conflicts of interest given the leasehold arrangement and the fact that there are contractual relationships between, well, now North Yorkshire Council. It was formerly Harrogate Borough Council, but it's novated, to use the legal term, into the new authority following local government reorganisation. And then your second question concerned what I would broadly describe as the validation of the planning application that has been submitted and the procedure that we go through in order for that to take place. So in relation to the first, the potential conflict of interest, the scenario which we're faced with is not without precedent. Councils are asked to determine planning applications in their capacity as a local planning authority for all sorts of proposed developments in which the council corporately may have contractual interest. Similarly, councils are asked to determine planning applications for development on land which they own. Councils are asked to determine planning applications which they submit themselves. So there's the general point about potential conflict of interest prevails in all of those cases, and the way in which we deal with that is we deal with that via the independence of this committee. Now, at the start of the meeting, Councillor Aldred, the chair, was very careful to say that he had had some involvement with discussions regarding contractual arrangements in his capacity as a town councillor, Harrogate Town Council, the newly created Harrogate Town Council. But he came to this with an open mind. He hadn't prejudged the planning application. It would be determined following his consideration of the report, the presentation that comes on. Sorry, I'm putting words into your mouth, but I know that's what you meant. Now, provided that all of the councillors in this committee can say the same thing here today, then that's fine. You can proceed to determine this application. If, however, somebody says, well, actually, I want this to proceed because I think it would be a good thing for the council to secure the financial benefits which would accrue from this, then you ought not to do that. You should recuse yourself from the committee. You can't prejudge the application in that way. So I think there is a perfectly proper way for us to navigate our way through that and determine the application. In relation to your second point, which is what I described as issues of validation, you're quite right. You don't have to own land in order to submit a planning application. I could apply to develop a facility on land that any of you own, and provided that I pay the application fee, provided that I issue the requisite notices, and the council is satisfied that I have submitted a legally robust and procedurally correct planning application, then the council will validate that. Now, this application, or rather, it will have been validated several years ago, won't it now? Several years ago. I'm saying that yes, it has been validated, and yes, those certificates will have been issued. I'm saying that, but I'm looking to my planning colleagues on the right-hand side. Whether or not we can produce the certificate B now, I'm not sure, but I'll look to John and Nick on those points.
Nick has kindly looked through the file, and yes, certificate B was served on the council. I think you may have got the balance the wrong way around there. It's the applicant who serves certificate B on the council, not the council serving it on the applicant. So the certificate B is effective. If you don't own the land, you have to tell the person who owns the land that you are applying, and they did do that.
Okay, any follow-up, Councillor Walker? Any other question? Okay. Any other members wanting questions to the officers? Councillor Broadbank.
Right. Working, yeah. It's a question on things that are in place at the moment, and I have a concern that some things have yet to be resolved. I've noticed in 210, for instance, says against the local plan policies, consider the application submitted or can be made acceptable. Why can we consider something when everything isn't in place?
Who wants, Mr. Worthington?
Sorry, can you elaborate on which paragraph that was from?
210. Oh, well, I've got, yeah, 210 I've got.
That's in the officer report, Councillor Broadbank, yeah.
So I think the issue at play there is, as I've explained, the Section 106 legal agreement isn't complete today. And that's not an uncommon practice within determination of planning applications. Section 106 agreements are routinely resolved post a committee meeting. So our belief is that Section 106 agreement can be completed, will be completed. There's been a legal change through the Greenfield case. We have to publicly make that document available at 2 stages before the decision notice will be issued, and that we would do. But that is the issue that's still, as far as this application is concerned, unresolved. There are, I think, 3 conditions attached to the outline that require details to be submitted. One is in relation to highway matters. We don't have a submission for that, but I'm sure that will follow should reserve matters be given. There is a post-construction certificate required to be submitted. Clearly, until the building's constructed, we can't receive that. And then, as is recorded in the report, there's a condition in relation to ecology, and that is under consideration. A submission has been made, and that is under consideration as we speak. But that is separate to the application that's before members today.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Broadbank? And any other question to officers? Anybody else? Councillor Lacey.
So I'll just take you outside the remit perhaps, but there's a purpose in the question. Recognise fully that the application before us today is about appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. So that's what we're considering. I am though reflecting on the passage of time. I'm also reflecting on some of the things that may have been approved and agreed and satisfactorily agreed, where there may be a change of circumstances or new evidence or whatever that something was awry. I suppose the question is how is that monitored? How is it evaluated, and what might the role? We've talked about the transfer from Harrogate Borough Council to North Yorkshire Council. The area committee here is, of course, a subcommittee of North Yorkshire Council, but may well have a role in future in terms of ensuring that what goes ahead in a consistent way with the planning application, etc. So there's those. I'll use a little example in terms of new evidence or whatever. This summer has been extremely dry. The aquifer from which the water is being drawn at potentially double the rate that it has historically could have ecological impacts that were not envisaged. Now, that wouldn't be material to today's decision, but what are the mechanisms by which, were that to become material through whatever evidence, that either redress or conversation or action could be taken, not necessarily to overturn a planning application, but in order to see the good of the ecological environment.
Can we have silence in the gallery, please, whilst proceedings are carrying on? Mr. Worthington.
The outline is granted. We can't go back and revisit that now. That is a permission that exists. So that's the position where we're at.
Can I ask for silence whilst the officer is speaking, please?
As I've mentioned, there is a condition in relation to ecology. That's under consideration. I have no reason to believe that we will not be able to discharge that condition. So that's the position we're at.
You want to come back, Councillor?
And just a clarification, because I note in the consultees that Yorkshire Water, relevant to the example that I gave, made no observations on this current application. Now, I presume that is because of the restricted nature, the elements under consideration, and that their previous input on ecology, water, etc., would have been made at previous stages.
Yeah, we've asked them for comments on the matters that are before members today. So their comments in relation to this application are pertinent to those issues, yes.
I think, Councillor Walker, you have a further question.
Yeah, so I've actually got three, but I was trying to give others the opportunity to speak. So I'll just go through them one at a time, if that's okay. So obviously...
Can we get the answers one at a time as well?
Yeah.
Three questions, three answers.
Yeah, let's do it like that. So obviously we need to make it the decision based on the areas that are in the proposal. So if we just look at the appearance first of all, you've said it meets the criteria, great. But I just wonder if you could just expand on that a little bit more. So how does the industrial design that is in the plans comply with local policy HP3, which requires the development to protect and enhance the spatial qualities and characteristic of the area, particularly as it's adjacent to a designated conservation area and special landscape area. So if you're able to give a bit more detail of why you feel that it meets that criteria, that'd be helpful.
Sure. I mean, the starting point is obviously that the principle of a building in this position is already approved. So it's the detail of the appearance of that building. Now, the building is on one side adjoining the existing building, on the other side facing a retaining wall. The rear of the building, if I can describe it as that, is into the service yard. So it's one key northern-facing elevation that is of importance. Now, the building design is set down to limit its appearance. There will be planting in front of it, and it is clad in a variety of materials that we believe will give it its appearance in a manner that is not intrusive in its locality. So that's the judgment we've come to.
Question 2.
Thank you, Chair. So about the landscape character, so given the site's location within the Pine Woods and Valley Gardens SLA, how have you come up with the justification and conclusion that this does not cause significant harm to landscape contrary to C9 and the landscape character assessment in 2004?
I think that question is really pertinent to the granting of outline consent. If you could explain which of the reserve matters you're thinking of there.
I just think it's going to have a huge impact on the site next door, and I can't see, reading the documentations, how that we're still trying to overcome that. It just is right next door to an area that is really sensitive, and I just don't see how we've mitigated that enough. I just can't get the evidence out of the documentation.
I mean, again, to repeat, the principle of a building there is established. In relation to the direction, the building is set against a retaining wall, so effectively that the height of the building is at the same point of that, so the building is therefore set down. I don't know if we can put that on the screen, Edward.
Just to speed matters up a bit, maybe you could ask your third question and we can come back.
Yeah, that's great.
It's here, sorry.
Thanks.
Sorry, I'll put my mic on. So what we're looking at is, this is looking from the service yard towards the building, and at the far end you will see that the height of the building is the equivalent of a retaining wall, and then the pinewood area is beyond that. So when viewed from the opposite direction, the roof of the building is at the same level as the ground. In other words, the building is set down to mitigate its impact. So it by all intents and purposes, views are limited. I'm not going to say that they're non-existent, because that is the case, but it is limited by setting the building down, and that is mitigating views from that direction, coupled with the fact that the building is not hard up to the boundary there. There will be planting beyond that that's shown on the landscaping plan, which is there. So within the red line, if I can get the cursor working, there's the area there between the red line starts at that point. So there's a significant portion within the site, within the red line, which isn't actually where the building is, and then the building is set down significantly.
Are you coming back, Councillor Walker, on that specific point?
No, don't need to come back on that specifically.
Okay.
And
question 3.
The final question, although it's not specifically what we're determining today, is really a point of clarification. So it's about the biodiversity net gain, and I know that was in the solicitor's letter. So for me, part of that has been answered. We need to make sure there's no loss of biodiversity under condition 12. There seems to be a slight conflict in the report from the ecologist of the 8th of December that says that needs to be discharged prior to the reserve matter. Why is there the slight contradiction? And I just wondered if you could answer that fully about where we need to determine about the biodiversity net gain. Have we pre-discharged it? Are we happy with that? Or is that something that we need to put in the 106 agreement?
Well, firstly, the outline was granted before biodiversity net gain legislation came into force, so the principle was established before that was in place. In relation to ecological matters, if I can describe it as that, that's where it's controlled by condition 12. Now, we believe that as officers, determination of the reserve matters can take place prior to the discharge of condition 12, so that we brought the application forward at this point. So that's how we see it, that there is no conflict by determining the reserve matters in advance of the discharge of condition 12. Condition 12 will ensure no net loss, but it won't follow current biodiversity net gain requirements because the application predates that.
If I could just come back on that, and this is the issue I really have. I get the regulations are what they are, but if this planning application had come to us today right from the scratch, then we'd have to put a biodiversity net gain in. We'd have to be much more stringent in determining any planning. And that is my real concern about this application, that we are not protecting the environment enough. There is not enough rigour because of the determination that was done when the outline was done, which was years and years ago, because from my perspective, there seems to be a delay, and well, a huge delay, and you know, the cynic in me wants to know why. So as I say, I get where we are, but if I am passing anything, I want to make sure that there's real rigour in anything that we do.
Okay, I don't, unless you want to come, do you want to answer that, Mr. Wormington? I don't think it really was a question.
Condition 12 is subject to examination by the council's ecologists, and I don't think it's within their job remit to not achieve the issues that you've just outlined. So I would have confidence that the issues you are talking about would be achieved. In relation to applications and change of legislation, that happens all the time. It's not unique to this application, and we can't bring back every application that was granted prior to the introduction of biodiversity net gain and ask to redetermine them. It's just the way that the timing that matters came forward. I understand your concern, but that is the legality of the permission we have before us.
Can I just remind members that we are not yet in debate. We will have a chance to come back and revisit maybe some of these issues when we do go into debate. But at the moment, we're just asking questions to the officers. So Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just build on one of the questions which Matt recently asked in connection with the appearance? Could we put the site plan on the screen, Chair, if we may?
Is it the elevation or the actual plan?
It's the actual plan, the layout. Yeah. Now, if this was a residential housing application, I understand there's a sort of rule or a custom, if you like, whereby the extension, because basically this is an extension, the extension should not be bigger than the original building or house. And the extension in residential terms for a residential house, I've been told numerous times in this committee, always has to be, quote, subordinate or smaller than the original building. Now, looking at that, it seems the extension is quite a bit bigger than the original building. So I just wondered if that was a consideration, and if so, should we have thought about that when we came up with the recommendation in the report? Thank you, Chair.
So just changing the slide, that's the parameters plan that was agreed at outline stage, and the committee that determined the outline. The yellow area is the developable area, so you can see at outline stage, approval was granted for a building of up to that size. In other words, that was the approval given, that they're the parameters that were set at that stage, and the building that's proposed today, the scale layout of it, follow those parameters.
Any further questions, members?
Yes.
Mr. Broadbank.
Question. On the regarding the principle of development, I noticed in 2017 it was acknowledged that the proposal would harm the landscape of the special. Sorry, would harm the landscape of the special landscape area. This extension is much bigger. Now, if it was recognised and acknowledged that it would could harm the landscape, then in this thing, which is going to be about twice the size of the whole complex, how can that still be acceptable?
So those comments are in relation to an extension that was just on the screen of that size. There's no increase in size. The building that's before you today follows the parameters that were before members in 2017. So I don't quite understand the question.
The building itself, the bit in yellow, but it's the building I'm talking about. The size of the extension compared to the existing building.
Yeah, but that's what was approved in 2017, and that's the parameters within which you're making your decision today. You can't go back on that. That was what was agreed at that point.
You're looking puzzled, Councillor Broadbank, but I think that's where we are, perhaps unfortunately. Any further questions from any more members? I do have a couple myself. Mr. Worthington, in your presentation, you alluded to the number of jobs being created.
Yeah.
Can we just double check? That's 50 jobs and it's full-time equivalents. It's not just 50 part-time jobs. It's actually 50 full-time equivalent jobs.
I don't know the answer to that. The information, the report says 32 jobs, as you saw in the agenda, and I was provided information by the applicants to suggest it was 50. So,
well, actually, we've got the applicant coming up, haven't we? So I'm going to take the chair's prerogative and ask him that when he appears, and he's smiling. And the other question was, it's been alluded to several times about the timeline, and it is a long time from 2017, and I would hope well, I know we don't normally go that length of time from an original application to reserve matters application. I'm aware we've had COVID in between, and that's been a factor as well. But is there anything else we ought to be knowing? It is an excessive amount of time in getting from that original application to today, I feel.
I wouldn't disagree that it's longer than the usual time that we would take to get to this point, but I think you've alluded to one key issue that's occurred in that period, which was COVID. I think the other issue was from the operation of the applicant's point of view was that they have changed their kind of makeup, as it were. There was a change of hands there, and I think that has to a degree delayed this matter coming forward.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, I don't think we've got any further questions, and I do apologise to officers for taking our time and grilling you on those, but that's what we're here for. And also, under the new constitution, we can't ask questions of anybody else. So, unfortunately, officers are going to take the brunt of it from now on. We do, however, have 4 other speakers to address us this afternoon. So, I can just remind you that each speaker has time 5 minutes to put their case forward. We talked about the cards earlier. As we get towards the end of the 5 minutes, David will hold up 2 signs to inform the speakers of this. The first one will be for 30 seconds, and then again 10 seconds. And could I ask everyone in the public gallery, please, these speakers, I'm probably not as used to speaking in the public arena as some of the councillors here. Can you be courteous, please, and not enter into applause or the opposite of applause as we go through these 4 speakers? They've all got serious points to make, and it is our duty as members to hear them out. And we'll only give them the 5 minutes there. So I'm going to ask the first of the speakers to come forward. I think, Neil, you've been shown where you should be seating here and how to work the microphone. This is Mr. Neil Hind, who is the chairperson of the Pinewoods Conservation Group. And you've got 5 minutes to address us, Neil.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, everybody. I'm not just speaking for the Pinewoods Conservation Group, but also for Save Rotary Wood, Zero Carbon Harrogate, the Campaign to Protect Rural England, and over 1,000 residents and various other interested parties who have all objected to this application. I appreciate that's quite a long list. The applicant rests, as you've heard, on outline permission granted in 2017, a permission that came with clear environmental safeguards, especially condition 12, which required a full ecological mitigation and management scheme to be approved before any detailed application could even be submitted. That condition was never met. When the current reserve matters application was validated in 2020, no ecological management plan was in place. It has also been suggested that the council should have taken a full environmental impact assessment that was never done, maybe because of mistakes in the original application. This is still needed and could address the water extraction question that was raised earlier. The first genuine plan did not appear until last year, more than 7 years later. That means that this outline consent has expired in law. That is the legal view we've had. And the application stands before you on an invalid foundation. Condition 12 is not just a box to tick. It's a legal precondition. Approving a scheme without it not only undermines environmental policy, it exposes the council to significant legal risk, including a judicial review. Members deserve a decision that will stand up in court, not one that will fail under challenge. You will also remember that Harrogate Council refused a larger site expansion on this same site a few years ago. That decision recognised the environmental harm, woodland loss and policy conflicts such an expansion would bring. Those same fundamental problems remain today. Approving this version now would overturn the decision without any new justifications. Even if condition 12 was considered somehow live, the ecological evidence still fails that policy test. The council's own ecologist confirms that the scheme does not achieve no net loss, let alone any net gain. To break even, the applicant has already said they would have to buy biodiversity credits off-site, meaning Harrogate loses its own valuable habitat value. This directly conflicts with local plan policy NE3 and paragraph 180 of the National Planning Policy Framework. You have already heard that the new land being promised has no legal protection and is likely to be at risk from further extension of the site, further undermining any short-term ecological gain. The required Section 106 agreement that should secure these measures is still missing and was promised and assured it would be available before this meeting. Members are being asked to approve a development without seeing how biodiversity, woodland management or offsite credits will actually be done and how public access will be guaranteed to this new land. These vague promises are not planning control, only signed enforceable obligations are. Essential environmental evidence is also still missing. There is no lighting plan showing how the 7 species of bats recorded on site will be looked after. No updated noise survey for the new plant and the vehicle operation. Same goes for the highways changes that you've already heard about. These are all required under the Wildlife and Countryside Acts and habitat regulations to demonstrate that these protected species and nearby residents will not be harmed. Without that evidence, members cannot lawfully conclude that the impacts are acceptable. As we've heard, the site itself forms part of the Pinewoods Green Corridor, a valued space recognised as an asset of community value. It's a living woodland used daily for walking, education and well-being. This is not just a spare piece of land. Its loss would be permanent and contrary to both policies NE3 and HP1, which are there to protect green infrastructure and landscape character. So let's be clear here. Condition 12, never discharged, outline permission has lapsed. Any net biodiversity gain or even any quality of net biodiversity not achieved. Section 106, missing and currently unenforceable. Lighting and noise evidence, highways evidence, still absent. Community woodland will be permanently lost. The history that we've had, we know sites have already been rejected here. After 7 years, the facts remain the same. No lawful condition discharge, no completed 106, no adequate environmental evidence. You cannot protect biodiversity or public trust on missing documents. We therefore urge you to refuse this application, not because we oppose business, but because good business and good planning must follow the law. Thank you.
And thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to our second speakers, because this is 2.5 minutes each in this particular slot. On the council constitution, the divisional member, who is Council Mike Schofield from Harlow and St George's. Good afternoon, Mike.
Good afternoon, Chair.
You have chosen to split this between yourself and a colleague,
I have, thank you.
A further councillor, who is Councillor Arnold Warnacan from Oosburn. It is slightly unusual to do this, but as you wish to do it, I acceded to that request a couple of weeks ago, well, a week ago. So you will have 2.5 minutes, Mike, and the same card rules will come into play. And start whenever you wish.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity to speak on such a contentious issue. First of all, I'd like to raise a point of clarification. Glenn Sharp quoted 6 weeks rather than 6 months with regards to the sale of a CAV. So I do believe it's 6 months, not 6 weeks. Let's put aside for a moment that, in my opinion, the application is already legally challenged and focus on whether Section 106 will protect the land and biodiversity. After I finish, I would like John to confirm, as only 2 reserved matters have been mentioned in this report, the other 11 from the original 2017 outline planning permission have been met and when they were met, for public clarity, please. I'd also like to draw the officer's attention to section 3.3 of the report, which references 3 prior applications in relation to this application before yourselves today. May I please inquire why there is no reference to the refused application dated 26th of January 2021? In the relation to specifics of the historical applications and the meeting of the aforesaid conditions, I'd like to start with, when they filled in their application, outline application form, Harrogate Springwater was asked, is there woodland, are there protected species? The applicant ticked no, no woodland, no protected species. I believe, therefore, this led to a sequence of events. No tree or bat surveys were triggered. There's no evidence of any environmental impact assessment screening. Then it was approved with conditions to make up for all the missing information, but the missing ecological information wasn't provided until 2024, and even then it wasn't complete. And it's still not complete, I would contend, unless officers can evidence otherwise. This has led to where we are today, with incomplete and inconsistent information, no full understanding of the impact or confirmed plan for mitigation. Environmental conditions are still unmet, and that means Section 106 agreements can't yet be drafted. It's a real mess. The Section 106 heads of terms in the officer's report are meant to give you the information to feel confident that community access and biodiversity will be protected, but there's no time frame indicated. There's no backup here because the application was submitted before the new BNG rules came in, so there's no minimum time frame protection. There's nothing to protect biodiversity or community access. Just remember, whatever specific period of time you say, unless you say in perpetuity, the land could be developed after that by whoever owns that land. Please don't forget how procedural flawed this is. Section 106 can't lawfully be completed yet because it secures mitigation, which hasn't been agreed yet. The proper sequence of assessment, mitigation design, and then legal securing hasn't been followed. In addition, it's very light on anything other than the maintenance.
We've had the 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
So if we can get Councillor, we can stop the clock.
I'm literally just going to be 30 seconds. So I'll take 30 seconds of Arnold's, if that's all right, Arnold.
2 minutes, Councillor Warnacan, then. Go on.
In addition, it's very light on anything other than maintenance of public land, despite early discussions regarding apprenticeships creation, investment in local sports clubs, and above the replacement, tree planting. I had a Zoom meeting with Richard Hall and his planning consultant in January 2024. Matters that trail on these matters, but the trail has gone cold. It would appear that officers have failed, in my opinion, to negotiate the optimal Section 106 that could have been achieved. Perhaps that's something to do with so many personnel changes through the lifetime of this saga. Make no mistake, if you approve this application today, you have left our community woodland and wellness unprotected, and that will be your legacy.
Thank you, Councillor Schofield. We are stopping the clock whilst our 2 councillors change places. And whenever you wish to start your 2 minutes now, Councillor Warnacan.
Oh, it's going to be illegible. Chairman, before we start, can I just thank you for exercising your discretion, for allowing me to speak. To put it into context, I have some affinity with Harlow because I spent the first 26 years of my life living there. Okay, so start the clock. This is about the law, not loyalty or royalties, about doing what's right, not what's convenient. No amount of greenwashing or window dressing can mask that. The outline permission said harm can be mitigated, and subject to such mitigation, harm was outweighed by the economic benefits. Subject to mitigation? So why are we here 8 years later when the key mitigation conditions still haven't been met, when the mitigation itself hasn't been fully mapped out? and two crucial conditions remain unresolved: ecology and lighting. The shocking thing is there's no record that environmental impact assessment was ever considered. Our officers claimed none was needed, yet there's no screening opinion on record. Bat and tree surveys weren't submitted. Without those, this process is unlawful, even now. Under the 2011 EIA regulations, any development likely to have significant environmental effects must be screened first using a complete and accurate environmental data. I'm going to skip because I know I'm running out of time. The failure to make such process is unsound, and any mitigation, even conditions, potentially unenforceable. We're in a climate emergency. In 2022, North Yorkshire declared a climate emergency, pledging to use all its powers to minimise the impact of the local authority. This has given us more strength, not less. We should be able to protect the climate and nature more. We should be planting trees, not cutting them down. They capture and store carbon. They slow flooding and increase biodiversity. All across the county, we are putting in natural flood defence systems. Here we are trying to take one out. What is needed is transparency. So members, please show the residents you're listening to them. In the words of a Methodist hymn, season by season, we share nature's graces, only remembered for what we have done. And I quote somebody more famous than me that came in an hour ago from Jane Judy Dench: to destroy Rotary Wood for corporate expansion is environmental vandalism. Planned and erasing a thriving habitat nurtured by the community is totally wrong. Thank you, Chair.
I love a good old Methodist hymn, and I daren't stop a quote from Dame Judy Dench. So you had more than your time there, Councillor Warner couldn't, but well done. Our final speaker to the members is the applicant, and on behalf of the applicant, we will hear from Mr. Richard Hall, who is the Managing Director of Danone. And Richard, whilst you're getting settled in, I'd be grateful if you could address that issue of how many jobs would be created if they are full-time equivalents.
I will, Chair.
Lovely, okay. The floor is yours whenever you wish to start.
Thank you. Just to correct one point, I'm the Managing Director of Harrogate Spring Water. Just pointed down.
You see, good information from these officers here. So we haven't started yet. We'll start when Richard starts. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. So I'm here today to speak about our revised plans to sustainably expand our operations. As you'll know, outline planning permission was granted in 2017, and today's decision focuses solely, as mentioned, on the reserve matters, which relate to scale, layout, landscaping, and the external appearance of the building. Our application has attracted considerable local attention, and I will address that. We are a small local business, proud to be based in Harrogate and to carry the name of the town.
Can we give the applicant the same courtesy as we've given everyone else, please? And we'll give him an extra 20 seconds, please.
Thank you. We produce premium spring water, and we proudly serve customers when they're out and about in restaurants, pubs, hotels, railway stations and such like. We're growing steadily, and we've reached a point where we would like to expand our production capability. So I took over as MD in 2022, and it was clear to me that we needed to listen to the community more closely. That is why we ran new consultations in town, and we met the Pinewoods Conservation Group, we met the Rotary Club, and we met residents living very near to our factory to understand their concerns and to look at our plans. The central matter of concern raised during the consultations was the loss of trees in Rotary Wood. And our proposal will create a new area of publicly accessible woodland, the same size as the area that would be lost, and it will be joined up with Rotary Wood and the Pinewoods. Our conversations with the Rotary Club have been open and constructive, and we're pleased to say that they, the group who originally planted Rotary Wood, consider our proposal robust, and they consider it would have a long-term benefit to the community. They do not object to the plans, and we're pleased that the Harrogate Civil Society is also neutral. As well as being a responsible neighbour, we contribute to the town through offering employment, using local contractors, supporting local charities, and spreading the name of the town throughout the country. We'd like to continue to contribute to the prosperity of Harrogate, and to do so, we must be able to grow sustainably and to compete. This will help to secure our long-term economic growth. So let me recap how we've acted on what the community asked of us. We've refined our building design so that it will be largely screened by trees. We took some time. There was a comment earlier from one of the councillors about the time it has taken, because we listened to the community and we have now committed to buy new land behind the factory and turn that woodland into woodland for the community. That took some time to locate and to negotiate. This land is the same size as the woodland that would be lost owing to the expansion of our site. We've taken advice from local council experts on tree species, on planting, and we will work with local residents to ensure the footpaths are linked up with the adjacent woodland and the design is appropriate. We will also support any application for the new woodland to be designated as an area of community value, an asset of community value. Overall, on this new 2-acre site and with other local sites, we will plant 6 times as many trees as are removed, around 3,000 in total. And to demonstrate our good faith, we have already planted 800 in the local area. The reserve matters shows there will be no net loss, but following your question, Councillor Ward, we can confirm that we've committed to a 10% biodiversity net gain through tree planting and the purchase of credits. Throughout, we've remained transparent and ready to engage, including with those who still disagree, and we will continue to do so. These are not promises for the future. They are actions that are already underway, and they are included in the Section 106 to be agreed. Local businesses like ours, expanding sustainably, are important for the town of Harrogate, and this project would generate around £2.3 million every year for the local economy and create 50 permanent jobs on site. In order to understand local community opinion on our project, we have commissioned an independent research by Census Wide, an accredited member of the British Polling Council, to run a survey in Harrogate. The survey was sent to 200 randomly selected people across Harrogate, and I'm pleased to say it shows strong public support for our approach. 71% of residents questioned expressed a positive view of our plans, and more than 90% agreed that our tree replacement scheme is a fair and adequate compensation. That tells me that our proposal answers the concerns expressed by residents, and they will welcome our investment because it will boost the local economy, protect local jobs, and continue to build the name of Harrogate. I hope the members will support your office's recommendation and approve our Reserve Matters application, which will enable this much-needed local investment. Thank you for your time, and I think we cannot take questions, can we? So thank you for your time, councillors.
Unfortunately not. Back in 2017 we could, but
Yes,
the rules have changed since then. But thank you for your presentation, Mr. Hall, and that was within the 5 minutes, so that is excellent. And it answered my question as well, which was great. Okay, so I just want to reiterate before we go into the debate, members, that the principle of development has been established under the Outline Planning Permission. I think we all know this. Planning law is clear that a reserve matters application needs only to address reserve matters, as the principle of development and associated technical matters are approved as part of the outline. We've already heard the matters under consideration this afternoon are scale, layout, appearance and landscaping. The scale and layout comply with the parameters Mr. Worthington told us conditioned at outline stage and are considered to be acceptable. The proposed landscaping has been reviewed by officers and amended through the application process and is considered to be acceptable. The appearance has been altered through the application in response to officer comments, as we've already heard from a couple of questions, and is also considered to be acceptable. All other aspects of a proposed development, such as highways, impacts, flood risk, noise, land contamination and ecology, were assessed under the outline application and are, where necessary, controlled by the conditions on the outline consent. So let us talk about those matters, the reserve matters. We are here to debate, and who wants to start, members? Councillor Mann.
I find myself in a difficult position, Chair. I feel my hands are tied to some extent. I've listened to the views expressed by the public. We've had some good presentations. I hear what's said in relation to the tree the tree replacement scheme. 500 trees will be planted by, which were planted by school children in a section of the pine woods known as Rotary Wood, will be felled. It's very upsetting, I appreciate. On the other hand, 3,000 trees will be planted to replace them. So it's very difficult. I understand that we've had over 1,000 objections and just 11 expressions of support. But on the other hand, we're going to be creating some jobs, 50 extra jobs. So I find it a very difficult position as a member of this committee. I feel that my hands are tied to some extent. I've listened to what officers have said. Just to quickly go through what we've been told, we have been told that we need to observe the procedures and processes of our local planning system. As I say, I think we've been told the scale and layout of the proposed development is compliant with the parameters. I mean, we've raised questions about the size of the extension compared to the original building. We've been told that's acceptable. In relation to the appearance, we've been told that although the building is industrial looking, we've been told by officers that the scheme has been altered, the appearance has been altered in response to officer comments. So I appreciate that things have changed during the 7 or 8 years, which is a huge length of time, I appreciate. And that's been changed and altered in response to consultations and comments from the public. In relation to landscaping, this has also been reviewed, we're told. It's been reviewed by officers and amended through the very long extended application process, and we're told that landscaping is also considered to be acceptable. So of the 4 things which we're discussing today, scale, appearance, layout and landscaping, we're told that all 4 have been changed and tweaked, and in the opinion of the experts, the planners, that they meet all the policies, both local and national. So as a layperson, as a member of this committee, having listened to colleagues and members of the public, I find that my hands are somewhat tied. I do think we have a planning system that doesn't necessarily always reflect democracy, but that's another point. It's not to be debated today. So really, I do think that whilst I fully recognise and respect the arguments and points of view expressed this afternoon against this application, I regrettably find myself in the position of having no other choice but to support it, Chair. Thank you. I'm sorry. That's my position.
Please, can you respect the councillor when he's speaking? Have you come to the end of your speech, John? Thank you. Further debating points from members? I think it's Councillor Broadbank.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have some very real concerns about the application and the size of the building. I've understand all the comments that the planning officers have made, but in the end, well, we take on board the technical and official advice. We also take on board what our gut feelings are about the area, about the town. I've lived in this town all my life, and I really do feel very upset about the character of the areas, special qualities of the area that are disappearing. And I think, as a member of the planning committee, I've got to take that into account when I as well as listening to the comments from the officers. I won't be supporting in fact, I might recommend something different. I won't be depending whether this is a seconder or not to the recommendation. But I will be recommending something else if the recommendation of the officers is not accepted. I'll be coming up with something else.
Okay, thank you for that advance warning. Councillor Broadbent. Councillor Walker.
This is a really difficult decision because it's about a planning policy which isn't fit for purpose, as John alludes to, but it's actually a moral vote for me. My 4-year-old niece is very sensible. Her dad plants trees, and she knows that plastic bottles are not a good thing. And I agree with my 4-year-old niece. She's a very sensible little girl. And, you know, she's planting acorns that my granddad, well, her granddad has given to her. So there's a real moral obligation to do the right thing. Councillor Warnecan talked about some of the council's policies, and he's right. This doesn't fit with any of the other council policies about environmental protection that we're trying to do. You know, we even have a policy, and it was one of the first things that we complained to the chief executive, and actually he did something. So there were plastic cups within the council building, and actually we got rid of them. So as a council, we set an example, and that's what we should be doing today. We should be setting an example, not just to the residents of Harrogate, but to the residents in the whole of this country. One of the things for me that I have real trouble with, it's about the biodiversity credits and credentials that we need to do, and that really worries me that we're going to get that wrong because we haven't got all the evidence from the start. And the other point that I'm really concerned about is the legal process that we're going to go through. So a number of people, and independently, I got to a very similar conclusion that Condition 12 needs to be discharged properly, and it hasn't. And it's really clear at the bottom of the solicitor's letter that we all got sent is what it says is conclusion. Any failure to address the points raised in this letter is likely to render the decision legally defective and therefore liable to judicial review. So from a councillor perspective, this is going to cost the council an awful lot of money. And I've got to think about that as well. So there's all those elements. So I cannot support this planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. I'm just going to bring the solicitor in on the legal point you raised there, because Mr. Hind obviously alluded in some detail to the legal process. And as you said, we've all had a letter from a firm of solicitors in Sheffield who deal with planning issues. So I think you've got a point to reference there, Glenn.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just for a number of people have alluded to the letter. Mr. Hines very fairly paraphrased what was contained within it. I know that all the members of the committee have received a copy of this letter, which we have responded to. But in summary, the letter made 3 points. One, it said that this application was out of time, that the planning permission had lapsed because it wasn't submitted in time. Secondly, it said if that wasn't the case, or without prejudice to that first point, they said that the argument was submitted that Condition 12 hadn't been properly discharged because of the nature of the information that was submitted as required by the application. And thirdly was the point about the Section 106 agreement, saying that the council can't determine, or the committee cannot determine the application in the absence of a Section 106 agreement. I'm discussing it with colleagues, and I disagree with those points, and have written back in terms saying why. I would refer members to paragraph 1033 of the report. The application was submitted in time, and the council's ecologists are satisfied that the information submitted was appropriate, and that the condition was appropriately discharged. There have been further discussions around wet woodland and other things. That's a normal iterative process which happens with planning applications. I don't make any point beyond that. So it's simply a matter of me as a council lawyer, other council lawyers and my planning colleagues disagreeing with those points made. The final point regarding Section 106, The law, which has been referred to, the Greenfields case, does not obligate a council to have a Section 106 agreement in advance of making a determination on an application. The recommendation before you is very standard in nature. You will have determined applications along these lines on numerous occasions. Planning permission, if approved, if this was approved, the decision notice cannot be issued until that Section 106 agreement is completed. That Section 106 agreement, when it is available, will be published in draft on the council's planning portal, and then published when it's completed. So we note the legal representations that have been made, very sophisticated, comprehensive legal representations, but we don't accept them. My advice to this committee is that the process to date has been sound, and that it's open to you to go ahead and determine the application as you see fit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. I'm conscious that Councillor Lacey has not...
Could I ask on a just point of order, first of all, before I make any comments? Because
Yep.
Councillor Broadbank has indicated that he may have an alternative proposal to the recommendation. I'm happy to make some general comments without indicating, but what is the process there?
Okay, well, you haven't spoken yet, so I'm going to let you speak, and then I think we'll come back to Councillor. Go on.
I was just, I'd be interested to know quite exactly what Councillor Broadbank has in mind, because if there is a substantive motion in front of you, and assuming that we get a proposer in a second, and that will be voted on. Now, if there is an alternative proposal, if there is an amendment to the recommendation, then the rule is we take that first. We don't take that after the vote on the substantive motion. Thank you.
And the recommendation before us is that planning permission be granted subject to the conditions listed below and completion of a Section 106 agreement with terms as is detailed in Table 1. Yes, correct. Thank you.
Okay, so you know what the
we
position
know where we
is.
are in the process. Thank you, Chair.
Would you like to
I'll
give
make
us
a
your
few general
thoughts?
comments then, and then I'll look forward to hearing what Councillor Broadbank has to say. 4 things. First of all, I'm not of the opinion at all that the interests of business and ecology and environmental matters compete. I think that's a false dichotomy. I think there is an opportunity in this context to have a win-win in the sort of popular language, and I think to a degree that interest, that combined interest, is being demonstrated. However, point 2, it is clear and regrettable that trust between the parties is lacking, and that is regrettable and makes the achievement of that balanced outcome more difficult. It leads, unfortunately, to my 3rd point, which is that the wrangling of further legal challenge, depending on the outcome of the decision today, could further harm those relationships. And at the end of the day, a business in the town of Harrogate, a valuable business, and the genuine interests that we all have of the environment and residents will continue to be fractious, and that is not something that I would want to facilitate in any way. So that is a consideration in my mind in terms of what decision we make today. My 4th and final point, I mentioned it briefly in my earlier question, is that we do, whilst this committee has very prescribed, I suppose, responsibilities, the area committee, which I currently chair, has, I suppose, not wider powers, but certainly an interest in both the economic development of the area and in any matter that residents raise to be considered. So it's perfectly within, and I can commit myself as current chair of the area committee to take an ongoing interest, again, whatever the outcome of today's decision is, to ensure that residents and businesses thrive alongside each other, as well as protecting our environment. So those are my general comments, and some of the things that will rule my decision once I know exactly what that decision might consist of. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Broadbank, you have us all in suspense. You have a proposal to make, so...
To put forward an alternative proposal, which is to refuse the application, which is contrary which in the committee's opinion is contrary to policies HP2, which seeks to protect heritage assets, including conservation areas, HP3, which seeks to protect the spatial qualities and character of the area, NE4, which seeks to protect landscape character, particularly within landscape areas, special landscape areas, which are valued for their high quality landscape, important to the settings of Harrogate, and NE6 seeks to protect local green spaces. And that's my amendment.
I don't think that's an amendment, that's a refusal.
Oh, sorry, that's, beg your pardon, that's alternative motion.
So, I think you wanted to come in, Glenn.
No, I think you've already said it, Chair. That isn't an amendment. It's a recommendation for refusal on the substantive motion, and Councillor Broadbank has set out his reasons for refusal. So if that is the alternative that is being proposed, the way to proceed would be to vote on the substantive motion once proposed and seconded.
Okay. I just have this actually is an alternative. This is what I'm going to say now is an alternative. And I think I can do it procedurally. I'm sure I'll be told if I can't. I think this is, I accept what officers have said about Section 106, and we know we do this as a matter of course. A lot of applications we delegate the chief officers to negotiate with 106. It didn't used to be published in advance, I think, but it will be now because of a legal case that John referred to. But I sincerely feel that this application is so important to Harrogate, as befits the amount of interest today and also the amount of objections as well. So my proposal is we defer the application and we reconvene as a committee when we know what we're talking about in terms of Section 106, and we know that the condition 12 has been sorted. There's a legal term for that. Discharged, thank you. So that would be my proposal, that we don't go for a complete refusal, although we could vote on that. But we because it is really important, and there's been really good points made, particularly by the objectors, I have to say, and Councillor Walker has made the point on a number of times that we are kind of voting for Section 106, which we don't know about, and I agree with that. Normally we do that, but I think in this particular instance, I think there is a reason why we shouldn't do that, why we should defer it and bring it back to the committee rather than just simply go ahead. So that is my proposal. I think that is an amendment.
It is, Chair, yeah.
So,
could I just to be clear though, for purposes of good order, so you would be proposing to defer on the basis that the committee requires more detailed information regarding the contents of a Section 106 agreement. Is that's correct? I think that's the easy bit, and I understand
that is, and the discharge
discharge of condition 12.
Yeah.
And again, I would refer members to this paragraph 1033 in the report. Now, saying that the North Yorkshire Council's ecologists are satisfied that the full mitigation for the extent of the loss of plantation can be achieved. However, the ecologists and the applicant are looking at an opportunity to provide a wet woodland adjacent to the site. They're reviewing the necessary details, etc., etc. You can read it for yourself in 1033. So I think what you're saying, without wishing to put words in your mouth, is you're looking for more detail on the Section 106 agreement and more detail in relation to that work that is taking place and the discharge of that condition. If it's something else, then
no. You've surmised that brilliantly, Glenn, and I do think we owe it to the public that we can't go ahead and just accept this, because those are unknowns. And it is, as several members have said, such an important application. Councillor Walker.
So if I can ask for a point of clarity. So I could only support that if we could include in the 106 agreement, when we're obviously going to discuss it outside of here and come back, but I could only support that if we could insist that all the current BNG regulations are included in that 106, and we have reports that show clearly how those can be met or they can't, so that it is really robust. And that's the only way I would support that amendment.
I think we can't forecast what the Section 106 would be, but we could ask, certainly, that BNG be looked at as part of the Section 106. What we'd be getting back, Matt, is a draft. So, you know, it would be up to us as a committee to accept that or not when it came back. And I think we can ask for BNG to be looked at in terms of the legislation. Are you saying no, Mr. Sharp?
No, I'm not saying no, Chair. I'm saying that this committee can't ask for whatever it wants to be put into a Section 106 agreement. With respect, it can't, because local planning authorities are fettered by government policy at national level, national planning policy framework, and the law, and the very specific criteria as to what can and can't go into a Section 106 agreement, the tests regarding its necessity, has to be reasonable, related in scale of kind, enforceable, and so forth. So it's important that we make that caveat as to what can go in a Section 106 agreement. Also, in relation to BNG, the inescapable fact is that the application was pre-mandatory BNG. We heard from the representative of the applicants that they are in fact going to provide 10%. So there may be some scope for negotiation there. But I just need to make the point we can't ask for anything to be in a Section 106 agreement. Sorry, Chair.
Okay. Does that clarify, Councillor Walker?
No. So if we would put an application in now, my understanding is there are 4 key areas that we could put in the 106. So all I'm asking is that we need those putting into the agreement now. I get we're doing it on a different timeline because it was put in 2017, but all I'm asking is that those 4 conditions that an ordinary, so if we were to start from scratch again and we were to do that and we had to do BNG, my understanding is there's 4 areas that we could put in a 106, and all I'm asking is that those 4 areas are put in the 106 agreement now, so we know exactly what the net gain will be and all those kind of things, and that I think gives us some reassurance. If we can't put those in, then I can't support your amendment, unfortunately, Councillor Aldred.
What goes into the, sorry, Chair, the Section 106 agreement also is determined by the subject of the application to which it relates. And this is an application for reserved matters consent relating to appearance, landscaping, layout and scale.
Okay, and you've made your point there, Councillor Walker. I suppose I should ask, Councillor Lacey.
Just briefly, I'm warming to, but I'm listening also to what the Section 106, and the reason why I'm warming to it is simply the points that I made in terms of creating a space in which relationships can be built and consensus achieved. And if we can squeeze that objective into a formal planning process, then that would be my objective were I to support your proposal.
Okay, can I take that as a second? Well, we don't have to do it officially yet, and I know Councillor Walker wants to come back.
So can I just get clarity from the officers, please? whether we can include, so there's the 4 key areas that would ordinarily, if there's a submission that was put through now as part of the BNG policy. So my understanding is if a new application came in today, there would be 4 key areas. So point 1 would be to a completed biodiversity metric 4.0 or small site metric. Point 2 would be a baseline habitat map and post-evaluation habitat plan. 3 would be a BNG statement showing at least 10% net gain, and point 4 would be securing the legal mechanism, e.g. the 106 agreement for a 30-year habitat management. If we can put those into your amendment, then I would vote for it, but otherwise I would vote against it.
Okay, that's clear, and I don't think we can we?
No, for the reasons Glenn's outlined. I mean, you're dealing with a reserve matters application here. It doesn't cover those matters, so they can't go in. And a timing issue, unfortunately, means that you can't retrospectively bring that in. So, unfortunately, we can't do that. The only kind of crumb of comfort I will give to you is we all heard the speaker for the applications say that the aim of the applicant was to achieve a 10% gain, and therefore we couldn't insist, but we could ask.
Okay, so I would vote against the amendment, and I would be happy to second Councillor Broadbank's proposal when we get to that point to reject the application.
Okay, Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chair. I like the comments of my colleague on my left, and also I'm warming to your proposal, Chair. I do think we need to try and achieve a win-win here. I think, as we all appreciate, we want to try and enhance and support nature, walking, trees, etc. I think we're all in favour of that. At the same time, we do need jobs in the town. We're currently, as you know, working on the local plan for both housing and employment. We're hoping to build over 4,000 houses per year. But one of the preconditions for that, we're told by the economists, to achieve that level of house building in the county and around Harrogate, is that we need, over the next local plan period, 20 years, we need to bring in 95,000 jobs, because people can't afford mortgages without jobs. So what I'm trying to say, if I could just speak without interruption,
can we let
please.
Councillor speak, please?
Thank you. What I'm trying to say is that I do think we need a solution which encourages business as well as encouraging nature. And I think through dialogue and through the proposal, Chair, which you've put forward, a deferment to look at those 2 issues, I would be very happy to support such a deferment. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have got the proceedings would be we take an amendment first, and I've proposed an amendment.
That's correct.
And I think I've got a second.
Can you confirm the amendment being that this application be deferred, brought back to committee with additional information regarding the content of the Section 106 agreement, and also additional information regarding the discharge of Condition 12.
Yeah, that's my understanding of my amendment. Have we got a second?
I would second that.
Okay, so we have that as an amendment, and we take that before any rejection vote. So all in favour of that amendment, you all know what you're voting for. So that's 3. All those against? And we don't have anybody left to abstain, so that's 3-2. So that is the result of today's
It is, Chair, yes. So that the application is deferred for those reasons.
We can't answer that today. You can ask us questions after the committee. We're very welcome to take them, but we have reached the end of the proceedings for this afternoon. I'd like to thank all our speakers for being here. I'd like to thank the officers for being here. I'd like to thank the members because it's a difficult position to be in, but we have moved this forward. Let's just be clear, we're not granting this. We are concerned about the 106. We're concerned about the biodiversity. We're concerned about condition 12. So it hasn't been granted. And it will come back to committee. Most applications go to 106 between the officers and the applicant. We are saying we want it back here. We as councillors want to have a look at this agreement. So it's quite an unusual thing to do, but that's what we've agreed to do, and I think it's important we do that. And when we have that meeting, you guys can all come back, and you can also, everybody can make the same points, but at least we'll have the advantage of knowing what those two special agreements are, and we have the facts in front of us and not just speculation. At Harrogate Town Council, I have a gavel, but I don't. AOB. Any other business? No. So I declare this meeting closed. Thank you, everybody, for your time.